Hold on. Oh God. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'll be right back. I'm gonna change my shirt.
Okay. Are there any announcements or no?
Hmm, not unless you do.
I don't think so.
Okay. You okay?
Yeah, tired.
Yeah. Um, why don't we just enter the attendance right after they come back from break? This way you don't have to do it. Go
That's a
back.
good idea. Yeah. So I don't forget.
Well, I just, like there's no rush to um in that sense, like, there's no reason why we have to rush into the breakout rooms to talk to them. That you can just do your attendance and
Right.
have to. All right. Do do do. Oh my God, my name is crazy again. What's going on, James?
I was in the middle of the quiz when almost in there was like, okay, I have time, and it was like 1 minute, and I was like, almost done, almost done, almost done. It's like, sorry. I was like, well, I have the after class quiz. I pretty much know the answers, so I'll take the hit. I'll just have to plan extra time on top of the time I already did for the videos and all that because I was like literally knocking it out and it kicked me out.
Got it.
Wait, you said you hi, how you doing? You said you took too much time on the after class quiz and it kicked you out?
Before class quiz.
Oh, before class. Okay, gotcha.
Yeah, before class quiz. The before class quiz closes at 6:29 Eastern.
Okay.
Do do do.
Hello, everyone.
Hey Asha, I just wanted to mention that a lot of the quizzes had how to import the CSV and uh like just different questions on the CSV and the files of that, but the videos never went over those
Okay,
CSV thing.
okay. In the before class quiz?
Yeah.
It was in 2 quizzes actually. I think
Yeah,
it
it
was
was also in the after class quiz.
Well,
yes.
why are you guys taking the quiz after class quiz now when I haven't done class yet?
Because it was due.
Sorry. Yeah.
It's not
I
due.
like to
It's
stay
not
on
due until
topic.
tomorrow at 11:59 p.m.
Okay, yeah. Yeah, I was just doing those because yeah, okay.
Okay. Well, we're going over CSV during lesson.
All right, perfect.
So awesome. I'll look at the question on the before class quiz. No worries. If it's something that wasn't covered, then I will, of course, we'll give you guys the point back. It's not no issues. Okay. Any other questions? Thank you, everybody who came to office hours today. It was nice and fruitful, lots of learning, and spending time with you guys one-on-one. Okay. So today we're going, Jessica, there are no announcements, right?
No.
Awesome. All right. So today we're going to be going over how to importing your own files, CSV files, Excel files, and just generally data importing. And okay. So we want to make sure that you feel comfortable with importing the existing libraries like NumPy, which you guys have used before, math, which we used in the assessment for getting the value of pi. Once we get through it, you'll have a good feel for how to use these functions and what the purpose of like a library is, or like different like methods and functions. We're going to learn how to call and use the data that we grab from a CSV file or Excel, and in 2 different ways, just printing it directly or putting it into a dictionary, right? Or just a general list. So as we all know, a function is a block of code that is, the purpose of it is for you to be able to reuse that block of code repeatedly. Functions help reduce duplication of code. So because it's reusable, you don't have to write that code again later somewhere else. And it makes your program and the readability of your program much more easily and organized. Okay. You can think of a function just like a recipe, right? It's a step-by-step thought of procedures, and when you want to end it or burn your cake or whatever, you just say return, or you just come out of it. Just come out of it out of the code block naturally by it's run its loop, or it's completed everything that you told it to execute. Okay, so what is the purpose of an import statement? So importing in Python allows you to bring in code and functions from either a library or your own customized functions beyond just the standard Python library that you guys are using. Print is a function, right? It's somewhere in Python, someone has written code to define what printing means, right? It means to output to the terminal or output somewhere, right? Those are just the built-in functions into Python. What I'm talking about are libraries that have been written by either people that work for Python or just open sourced, that have been added for the benefit of the community of Python users. So a Python library is just a collection of functions bundled together under a main name, right? So math has pi, it has all these other functions in math that you can do, fancy ones that you'll probably never use, but lots of them that you would like to use. By importing, if you import something, and you run your code and you don't get an error, that means that your import has been accessed successfully. It's basically called a silent execution. If you get an error in your terminal, that's the only time you know that your import didn't work, is if you're not printing anything from that library, it is. So technically it's a silent function, the word import. Let's see, a lot of times when you're trying to import a library, the number one reason why your library, again, like math or NumPy, fails and it gives you a failure in your terminal, is because you have not installed that library. So all you have to do is go into your terminal and then do, if you're using pip or py, you can Google the name of the library and the word Python and how to install, and it typically will just have the installation from python.org. Okay. It typically in the terminal, it will explain to you what to do. It won't leave you hanging. Like I had to re-import OS this morning, and it just said, do you want to, it's not installed, you should use pip install OS. So in your terminal, just like your errors, a lot of times it'll just point you to the command to install. Okay, so I'm going to share does anyone have any questions while I share a screen?
Addie,
No.
go ahead.
So are libraries modules, are those synonymous terms in Python?
I would not say that they're synonymous. There are like slight variances between the two. But in our case, I would just say they are synonymous. Okay, hold on, let me just fix my Zoom. Okay, so let's start with NumPy. Okay, so if we're gonna do, and my mouse is acting up again today, Sandra, I didn't change my batteries.
Change your batteries.
I know. All right, hold on one second while I do that. Someone ask a question while I change batteries. And I have.
What's the velocity of an unladen swallow?
Okay, is that, what did you say, Patrick?
I said African or European.
Ah.
It's a Monty Python reference.
Yes, I got it. James Hoholick.
So you know how like NumPy would have its own library, your OS has its own library. Could you technically make one file with multiple libraries and just import from one file?
No.
No? Okay.
And you would not want to do that because the libraries are massive. So putting
Okay.
them into one file would actually slow down what you're trying to do.
Okay.
Because then your Python has to go through like a shell, and then of like the shell library, and then try to find the this specific one. And I'm going to go through why and show you the speed between importing an entire library versus just one function that you're going to use, and show you that the speed, it does, if you're going to import the entire library, it does slow down your code. So if you're going to use math, you only import math py. You don't import you don't need to import the entire thing into your code, because it will dramatically slow down what you're doing.
So we could build a library, but like how she said, like I only wanted to use mean out of NumPy. We could still have the library, but just import the subsection of it. Okay.
Yeah. So let's see. So let's just start with let's talk about OS first. Okay, so OS is a library that provides a way for you to use your operating system directly through source code. In common use cases, it's used in tasks like file and directory manipulation, running system commands, and working with environment variables. So essentially, I can run, and here's an example. So here I'm going to, my freaking mouse is dead and I don't have batteries here right now. Okay, so here I am importing OS, which stands for operating system. It's going to give me access to my entire file structure on my computer. Okay, so here I'm doing os.system. System is a method in this library. And I'm basically saying ls-l, which is list my files, right? In a list. So typically, if you just do ls, it's going to put it in 3 columns, but I want -l, which is going to put it in a list. Okay, so if I run this, hold on, I'm coming out of whatever it is I was working on earlier. Save this. Okay, so here you see it ran, I executed my Python file. And you see here, it has a list of what's in the directory that I'm currently in, okay? So this is an easy way to, without backing out of your entire file tree to find a file. It's a great way to just look at what files. And this is handy when you're doing imports because you want to know that your import file, if you're doing custom imports, are in the same folder that you're currently working on. And like if you don't have that open, if you don't have the file directory open in VS Code, it's a great way for you just to list what's happening without having to use your mouse, go figure out where you are, and find your files that you need. Okay, so let's talk about NumPy a little bit. NumPy, my notes. Okay, so NumPy is like one of the most broadly used libraries within Python. It includes numerical and mathematical operations. Like it provides arrays and matrices, mathematical functions that are essential to data manipulation. So, and scientific computing, which almost everybody here, no matter what position, like if you're a backend coder, you will be using NumPy if you're coding in Python. So let's just see an example of, so typically when you import NumPy, you say import NumPy as NP. So you create an alias, basically a nickname for the library. So when you're writing your code, you don't have to constantly type NumPy, NumPy, NumPy. And if you hover over it here, it's going to tell you like fast mathematical operations, linear algebra, Fourier transformations, and random number generation. You guys saw random number in, someone come off mute and tell me which one you used random number in recently.
Prime game.
What's that? Oh yeah, we used it in Prime Game. Thank you. Okay, so then we have pandas. Okay, pandas is, and like the animal pandas. And I'm going to go through examples of each one of these, so don't worry. So pandas is essentially for like, it's for data manipulation and analysis. You would use pandas to create data frames and series, making it easier for you to work with structured data. Because when you get most data, it's either in a CSV, like a comma separated value file, or it's an Excel, and it's really not handy for you to work with when you're trying to manipulate data, so you can use it in Python to run executable code on it. So you need, pandas is a great tool to manipulate your data the way it looks. So it's easier for Python to work on. Okay, so we saw import OS. So let's look at an example of NumPy. So here I have import NumPy as NP. I have a list named that I've assigned to numList, and I have a list of five numbers. And using NumPy's mean method and arrange method, I'm going to find the mean and then arrange them. And let's see, it'll pull it up here. Hover over it. Okay, so it returns an evenly spaced values given an integer, and I'll show you what that means in just a second. So here I'm going to just run. And so it gave me the average, the mean, okay? And you see here, I wanted more numbers, 0 through 49, because I'm saying 50, this is just like range. It's gonna give you index based on indexing. So it'll give you 0 through 49, which is 50 numbers. Okay, so if you ever just need, hey, I need you, Python, I need you to run, this is a great way to do a dictionary naming if you need a key value pair and you don't have time to create the key, which then you can say, hey, give me a list of numbers 0 through 50, and then you're going to use this in a dictionary as the 0 is your key, and then you can give a value of, like, if you want to name fruits, the key is going to be a 0 and the fruit is going to be apple. And then your key is going to be 1 and it'll be orange. So it's a great way to provide a really fast list of numbers that you can use. Any questions yet? No. Okay, so let's talk a little about importing your own function. Okay, so when you're importing your own function, this means that I have an example here where I'm going to, I'm going to open custom functions.py. In custom functions.py, I have a function named say hello. Okay. There is a parameter. It's currently saved to the value, assigned to the value there, the string there. And then the function prints hello with an F string, and then the value of name. Okay. So imagine that this is more complicated than a simple print statement, right? A great way is, like, say you want to reuse this in another file. Okay. So say hello is 50 lines long and you're doing this complicated math thing, and there's no reason for you to redo this over and over in my import lessons file. So rather than saying, if I know I have a custom file, a custom function, rather than, again, if I need to use the same exact code, I don't need to have it written in this file, in my import lesson file. Okay. What you can do is you can actually import the function from your other Python file and call it from there. Okay, so here I'm going to from custom imports, custom functions, I'm going to import the function named say hello. Okay, and again, going back to custom functions.py, my function name is say hello. So now if I want to use this, I simply go into my lesson file. I execute my function and I pass in the appropriate parameters. So here I'm passing in the string Rob. So now if it's saved already, and I'm going to clear this. So now you see I am in my import lessons.py. I have imported custom functions with I'm only importing say hello. And now I execute say hello and it printed for me. So go ahead.
So, quick question.
Mhm.
If, for example, if you don't want to, like, let's say custom functions has multiple functions, right?
Mhm.
But you would like to use certain ones and not all of them.
Mhm.
How would you list that all on the top, or would you list that like sequentially going down?
So typically what you do is, so say I have another function here. So we're going to say bye, right? And same thing, right? So if I want to add another function here, I would say bye right there. Okay. So you put a comma and then you put the next function you want to call. Okay. So now I can do okay. And now it'll say, oh, did I not change the word? Yeah, I didn't. So here now you have hello Rob and you have bye Rob. Now you can also use an asterisk. Okay. So say I want to import everything from custom functions. So imagine that you have, just like Niaz was saying, multiple functions. You can just use an asterisk here and it imports everything, all the available functions from custom functions. So now, even though I didn't call it up here like I did have it before, right? It's still going to, I'm going to put an asterisk back. It will still auto populate. So now if I say hello, you'll see it here because I'm using the asterisk. Right. So now I see. Right.
So why would you use the asterisk instead of just saying import custom functions and just leaving it as that?
I typically never use the asterisk.
Okay.
And I'm going to show you why it makes a big difference when you're importing NumPy or math. It slows it down quite a bit because you have to realize that NumPy, the library NumPy, the library OS, the library, I said math, NumPy, OS, all and pandas, right? All of these libraries are massive, right? So if you don't call, if you don't call it specifically in your import, Python has to read the entire library to find it, right? Versus just naming it, it goes much faster. Okay, so again, I just wanted to show you the difference between this is your own custom function. Now, as you guys develop your code, you're going to have very large custom functions that you're importing. So it's a great way to build your own reusable code, and it's a great way to make your code much more organized and clean, because you're just going to call the function rather than making your own, this one much larger. A lot of like in gaming, it's like custom functions are constantly being used. In data manipulation, same thing. James?
Would it also be smart to kind of like comment where like, well, never mind, because you're gonna see from custom functions, but like your own library, so just in case. So do you think we should add a
So-
comment?
So
Like, hey, this is,
typically, yeah, so typically here you would say imported function, right? And what the purpose of that function is. So I would say print hello, right? So typically you would comment, put a comment in here, and you would say why it is that you are, like, where that function is coming from, right? If it's coming from, or just say that's important, then the person knows to go look at the custom imports. Good question. Andrew, River.
So instead of importing the star, if you ran from my functions import say hellos, comma say bye, it'll run both of them.
So what do you want me to change this to?
No, I'm just saying I just put that in mine. I was having, I don't know what the issue was, but if I put from my functions import say hello and say bye for both of the defined functions, it'll run both of them. And that would be like that if I had numerous functions I could do.
So and it's only going to run it if you execute it in the file that you're in, right? So it's going to, your import is giving it a path, right? And then line 4 and 5 are executing those functions that you gave your file a path to. Because this is just like, let me think. When you, I don't have a good comparable right at this point. That's not a good comparable. It's kind of like like in electrical, you use yellow wire for something and red wire for a different thing. You know, when you're building bombs, you know, always on TV. It's like yellow wire is this, red wire is this. So you have to tell it, essentially, this is a yellow wire and this is where you find it. James, that was a terrible example. I'm so sorry.
The way I kind of thought of it is if you think about it, so your import say goodbye, right? If you think about your def, your defined say goodbye, that would technically your import would be the def, and then when you're doing the bottom part, it's when you're closing out your def anyway.
Right. So this is not closing it out. This is running it. So this would be running your function at the end of the def, right? So in your defined function, this would be running. You don't have to run it, right? There's no requirement in any of your functions to actually run it until you need it. And Python is not going to run it until you call it. Right? It's just going to sit there. It'll look at it. It'll say, oh, it's there. It'll check its indentation, but it won't do anything with it in any way unless you actually execute it. Okay. Any other questions here before we move on to getting data from a Excel file? Okay. Hold on, I need to move my Zoom 1 second. Okay. All right, so so when you're importing data from Excel files, Excel is probably the leading, you know, when you do grades, when you do any sort of like math, you're typically going to get data from an Excel file. And we use pandas, again, like the animal with an S, multiple. Okay, the pandas library with something called an XLRD. It's Excel read engine to read an Excel file. So I'm going to show you what we're doing here. So this is used when you have an XLS data file. So now I'm importing pandas as PD. Like we said, we're using an alias. I have, I'm creating a variable named data, and I'm saving it to pandas.readExcel, and then I'm reading the file data.xls, and I'm using the engine. This is an engine, so basically engine's a fancy word for an executable piece of code in pandas, okay? And I'm saying read this Excel file, okay? Because Python does not know how to use Excel files unless you manipulate the data. Now, a lot of you guys, you're going to have pandas already installed, but you probably will not have an XLRD installed. So you will have to do like pip or pip3 install XLRD. So if I do that here, it's going to tell me my requirement is already satisfied because I downloaded it this morning to make sure I had the up-to-date version. But a lot of you guys will get the error saying the XLRD does not exist. Please do pip install XLRD. Okay, so here I want to print data. Now, when you are importing files, okay, this is just XLS, data.xls. As you see here in my tree, I have a folder named CSV lesson, and then I have my current import lesson.py in that folder. I also have data.xls in the same folder. If your files are not in the same folder, you would have to put the path here. So you would have to put, in my case, if my import lesson.py is not in CSV _ lesson, I would have to do a backslash and then put the entire file path in there. So Python knows where to get it from, right? You can't just say data.xls and you expect your Python to know where on your computer it's saved. You have to specifically tell it. James.
I have a lot today. So in the kitchen terms, we called it mise en place. So it's gathering your ingredients beforehand to do it. So kind of like before start a project, just make sure that our XLS files are in the same folder. And two, have they figured out a way? So I know in our last cohort, we used Google Sheets, not so is that what the Excel files are, or would it be Google Sheets, or Excel as in Microsoft Excel?
It's Microsoft Excel, but then there's a library, there's an engine for like the Google Sheets thing. In Google Sheets, you can actually download your file as an XLS and go do it that way. But I want to reiterate something. 9 times out of 10, when you are working in your real world job, your data file will not be in the same folder. It will be somewhere random. It'll be on like a server, or it'll be, somewhere. It won't be on your local machine. Number one, keeping data on your local machine is just taking up space that you don't necessarily need. And number two, you typically don't own the data. It's somebody else's data. It's either your client's data or your company's data. So you're not going to have a local copy of it. So here you would be required to put an actual path in, a path that looks like, like anything. Like here, I'm in my JTC fall 23, right? Then I'm in JTC class code, and then I'm in a folder called lessons. And then inside there, I have my CSV lesson, right? So you would have to call the path for JTC fall 23 / JTC class code / lessons / CSV lesson. Eddie.
In that real world scenario, are like all the paths gathered that would be used like in any given project into like another directory with the other directories, so that they're not, you could go and like modify them and still have access to them throughout the overall project? Or are they actually input at each particular space, like I guess literally input, I guess you'd say, like at each usage throughout the project?
If I understand your question correctly, is the data stored like in a main location that everyone has access to?
I mean, like the paths that are, since the data won't be stored like locally, like you're saying, and we would need to like put the paths in.
Right.
Is there like organization techniques for those paths? I don't want to get us like way off the deep end or anything. I'm just curious.
It's gonna be organization by organization. I have seen organizations that it's quite a mess. It's like their data's everywhere, and sometimes the data is like you have to request access to the data and then put passwords in for encryption. So it just depends on how organized and how, like, there's going to be a data management manager. So that person would determine how it's structured, right? But typically in big companies, you have a data warehouse where all your data is kept. But then you have projects, right? So like in my projects, I have an entire data folder, right? So if I'm working on a large project and I'm doing it locally, I would say, this is my data folder, just like if you guys see in the test, right? So if I go down here and to right here, week 3, day 4, control structures, I have all the tests inside of a folder, right? So the same way, a lot of times, if you're working on a project and you're just working by yourself, you would have the data in a folder called data. I hope that answered your question, Eddie. I think so. All right, Donald.
Hey, I get that you put the path in there, but can you show us an example, please?
Okay, so you can just right click on any file, right? And you can just copy the relative path. So here you would put this. Does that make sense?
Okay. Yeah, it does make sense. Okay.
Yeah.
I just wanted to see it up
Yeah,
there, like
absolutely.
talking about it and then actually seeing it.
Of
Yeah,
course.
okay.
No,
So I
absolutely.
didn't know if there was any extra syntax that you would need to put or anything
Nope.
like that if you did that. Okay,
Nope.
cool.
It's just like when you're CDing, right? You have to know where you're CDing into,
Yeah.
right? So it's exactly the same way.
Mhm.
So you can right click on any file and copy your path or your relative path. Your path is going to be the entire, like from the basic structure all the way into that. So if I do copy path here and I just put it in here, you'll see that it's users, Asha desktop, JTC desktop, JTC fall 23, blah, blah, blah. Typically you'll just have to do the relative path.
Okay.
But it depends, again, it depends on how your data is managed, and how far, like, do you actually have to call the user, is an admin user that holds the data, et cetera, et cetera.
Gotcha.
So as you guys, I've said before, my path, my desktop here is pointing to my iCloud. And just like Donald, you have, what is it called? You're on OneDrive, right? You have a OneDrive path, which is just like a cloud, right? So I just have my desktop for all of my data and for all of my coding data on iCloud. I don't have anything locally. Okay. Okay, so let's.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, so here's I'm going to click on this. So actually it won't open it. Python won't open an XLS file. So I'm going to run this. And all I'm saying is read my Excel data, and then I'm going to print it, okay? Because Python, again, cannot open a XLS file. I'm going to show you in just 1 second. Okay, so here, just so you can see it. See Python, unless you have an extension for XLS, Python's not going to open it for you. Okay, and I don't have an extension put on. So here you have the XLS file, right? So the XLS file has rows, and it has a top row for the titles, and it has a left-hand side row for row numbers. Again, you're going to see that it's always going to start, anything you do in Python, anything you do in any software, you're always going to start with 0, okay? So you can see here, it took your data, the Excel data, in basically the same structured, column, your whatever structure, but you can now access each piece of data by calling index numbers, right? So this is row 0, this is row this is row 1. Your title doesn't count, so you have a row 0, and then you can call by index number. So this would be this here, the 0, 1, if you guys can see this. Oh, geez. So the 0 here is not an index position. The 1 is actually at index 0. Okay, it doesn't count the row numbers that, just like in Excel, on the left-hand side, it tells you what row number you're in. That's not a piece of data, right? It's just the position. Okay. Any questions yet? Okay, so what do I want to do? Give me 1 second. I want to import CSV. Pandas. So now I'm going to import. Okay, so I have an import name, a function named show grades. Okay, it's taking in a grade and as a parameter. So I'll have to pass in an argument when I execute it. Okay, so now I am referencing. So when you do a CSV, now, as you guys know, a CSV, I'm going to open it, it's typically a comma separated, it's comma separated values, right? So you have rows of data that's separated by commas. Okay, and anyone have like confused about what is the difference between a CSV is and an Excel? We're good? Okay, so you see that there's commas here, right? So we have to deal with all these commas and all this white space, okay? So what you do is you say with open, which means keep my CSV file open, okay? And then we call again the CSV file. So mine is called, as you can see here in my tree, lesson_csv.csv. And you're actually telling it it's a CSV file, okay? So then I go and I save my data as the variable lesson data, okay? And I'm using the function in the CSV library called reader, okay? So this enables me to read the CSV file, okay? So now I'm going to I'm using a for loop to go through each row in my lesson data. If the row doesn't equal the grade, I'm sorry, if my row equals the grade, I want to print row 1. So here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask the user, what grade do you want to see? Okay, so there's my grade. So I'm going to ask the user to select a grade. And if it gets to the row and the grade matches, okay, I want to return what's in row 1. Okay, so if I call row #1 and I want the first value, this is 0 and 1, right? If you think about index numbers, I want it to give me this. Okay, so again, you're using a loop and you're looping through each row of the data to find the grade the user is asking for. So if I do, it's asking me for a grade. So here I'm going to do #1 and it returns to me the 0.0924. Because again, I'm using a for loop, which you guys learned the other day, and I'm using an F string to print if there is none. And all I'm doing is reading through rows of data with commas in it. It's a little Donald.
Okay, this question may sound complicated. Can you go back to the CSV?
Uh-huh. Okay.
Okay, so I see up on line 1, it says grade, ounce, gram, inch, mm, PPO. Are those the columns?
Yeah, so they're columns. Well, they're not
Okay,
columns.
so is there a way? Okay,
Go ahead.
so it's not a column. It's just separated by commas, basically.
Yeah, so you've titled the and a CSV is a little bit you can think of it like a comma, a column,
It's a
because
space, yeah.
it's titling what is in my first position in the row. Is it here? It's
Okay, so
grade.
it is defining a column. Okay,
Yes,
that's
this
what I
is your
wanted to
title.
know. And okay, so I get that you could ask for the first grade, right?
Mhm.
But how do you get the rest of the information along the column in, like, go back to the CSV?
Mhm.
How would you ask for, like, say you wanted the on line 10, number
Mhm.
4, but you didn't want the actual grade, the actual, like, say you wanted inch instead the
Right.
0.4.
So here,
How do you ask that?
sure. So you have to remember we're indexing in. So the grades in position 0, ounce is
Mhm.
this is the first column. This is the
Okay.
second column. This is the third column. So if I
Mhm.
want inch, so I'm going to say, instead of here,
Reference 5.
I'm returning 3. Isn't it 3?
Okay.
0, 1, 2, 3.
3. Okay.
Okay. So here, using your example, I'm going to say 4, pound 4, and it's giving me 0.24. So again, we're
Oh,
using
okay.
everything that we just built upon. So you have a for loop. I'm indexing in.
Mhm.
I'm saying if what row 0, whatever's in row
Mhm.
0, if it equals grade, okay,
Mhm.
then find that grade, right, and return to me whatever's
Return
in that
row
row
3.
in row 3 or index
Okay,
3.
awesome.
Index 3. Okay. Drew.
Okay, now
Oh, sorry.
I was gonna say I
Um,
get it. I get it now. Thank you.
okay, you're welcome. Drew.
I was just curious, if you wanted to return multiple indexes, would you just like do comma next index that you wanted, comma next index or whatever?
So if I do,
Okay.
let's just see if this works. It's giving, okay, it's not going to give it to me that way. Hold on. Instead of doing, Donald, it keeps, are you raising your hand and putting it down?
Yeah, I was. I was trying to get your attention. Okay, so no, leave it the way you had it. Couldn't you put a comma right there in between the 3 and 4 and it would work?
Let's see. Okay, so
Nope.
now it's saying, hold on.
You just deleted something on line 8 before.
No, I didn't delete anything on line 8. Hold on. Did I just? Oh, did I mess something up on here? Hold on. Did I delete something over here? No.
Should have a return before, no?
Oh, yeah, I deleted that. But it's still not, it's still getting to here. There you go. Now, let's see. The question was, if we put a comma here, would it work? This is Donald's question. So if I do, there you go. Actually, this is not right. It's printing this 4. Jessica, can you look up what the syntax is to get multiple responses?
Yes.
Thank you. River, I can't remember off the top of my head.
Sorry if this is a dumb question. So in your if statement, if you change the grade as along within your f string to the ounce or the weight or whatever, you'd be accessing those elements.
Yes. So let's say,
Yeah, can you try comma and then row bracket 4 after row bracket 3?
You want me to, okay, wait. This is what the hard brackets, this is what I had and it didn't like it.
No,
that what
like
you're asking
row
me?
before that, row before the.
Oh, I see. Yeah. I do believe that's right. Let's see. Just want to make sure. Yep, there you go. Thank you. Yay. Okay, so River, your question was, is it ounce uppercase? So it's ounce. Y is,
Would it have to be ounces in the grade, show grades thing too? Because it looks like it's undefined.
no, it's not seeing ounce. Hold on one second. If row, no, am I spelling? I'm not spelling it wrong.
Does it need to be in quotes?
No, because grade was not in quotes.
Would you have to change it in your when you're defining the function up at the top there?
Because I'm not, you are just like here, we're accessing the entire row, right?
Would it be part of the print statement, show grades selected?
No, because we would just change this to ounce, right? Jay,
I think the parameter has to be changed because it would be undefined otherwise.
oh. Thank you. And was Rico saying that too?
No, I was looking more at the print
It's right
statement
here.
because the print statement was never changed. It kept show grades and grades selected on 12.
It's this.
Yeah,
It's
I asked that. I was like, in your define.
yes. Thank you. Okay, so here we would say select an ounce. Right, so again, you don't have to do all of this, but just for the sake of having consistent code, right? So this is okay. So now we're saying if it equals the second column, right? Then return 3 and 4. So it was 0.24, right? And the problem is that this is an entire, if you look here, the string is with the spaces. So I'm going to include the spaces because it's going to be an exact match. So let's try it this way. All right, so I'm trying to figure out why it's not finding 0, if it's because of this. Where's the, oh, I'm sorry. This is not where the 0.24 is row 3. So I'm requesting the wrong thing. So here's a number and here's what's in row 1. For Pete's sake. It has to be an exact match, and that's the problem we're having right now. There it is. Okay. It's because of the spaces in front of the string, inside the string, that it had to be an exact match, and I wasn't I wasn't sending the argument with the exact match. Paul.
In line 8,
Mhm.
would it work if you slice instead of writing row twice?
Yeah, so you could do 3 to 5. There you go.
Word. Thank you.
You're welcome. Someone else has their hand up.
It was me.
Okay.
So is the spaces kind of like because it has to convert it into Python when we pull it kind of thing? Is accounting for the fact that like in the Excel sheet there would be a gap? Is that why
So
it prints it out like this?
can you guys see? No, this is the file itself. I
Oh,
got this
okay.
file. It's like a sample file from, like, I Googled sample CSV file for data testing, and I just found this.
Okay, because I
Yeah.
wasn't sure if like when it does the like going from the XLS to CSV, if it because like on Excel sheets you got this
Mhm.
big old space. If it's like, well, we're not doing the whole graphics thing, we're just doing
Mhm.
it shows it over here, so we're putting it over here.
Right. So this actually has, and if you guys can see it in the linter, the color thing, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. There's 7 dots, which means that there's spaces there. So it would be 7 dots start and then 0.0473. Eddie, you had a hand up.
I just want a clarification.
Mhm.
Is the CSV file alias syntactically mandatory, or is it convention?
What do you mean?
With open on line 4, you
Uh-huh.
had mentioned I wasn't really sure from the way you worded it in terms of whenever you alias it as CSV file, was that mandatory with using this library, or is
Oh
it
no,
convention?
you could change this to anything. I can say
Okay.
fish, and here you would say fish.
Okay, I was
Yeah.
just curious if it needed to be
Yeah.
in that precise form for the library or not.
Yeah, so this is aliasing this entire file, right? So as fish, this is like you are saving, I'm opening the CSV file and I'm saving it as like a variable almost, right? And it does say, if you look at the helper thing, it says variable fish, right? So then you would have to change your CSV reader here to fish as well. And that will run just the same. Eddie, if you have another question, is your
Yeah, this is a different question. I'm sorry.
No, you're fine. This is like, this lesson is meant for questions. There's lots of like intricacies to importing. Go ahead.
So the extra white spaces, like if we were able to kind of like, assuming we could kind of just glance over the file and know there's extra white space, could we, like as we're reading it, trim that like with a trim function or something, like to get rid of the white spaces, or is that
You
not-
can. You can get rid of the commas. Like if there's commas in there, you can get rid of all that. But you typically don't, unless you're told to manipulate the data, you don't manipulate it, right? You would be told that there's 7 leading spaces in front of every, like in column, whatever. There would be instructions with the CSV file from your client saying, hey, in column, this is 0, 1. In column 1, there's 7. It's not actually 7. It's actually to make the columns, if you see, to make them even, it's creating the correct number of spaces, right? So to make this column here, the comma, so the commas line up, the file is creating the correct number of spaces, so each column lines up, right? If I look at hurricanes here, the same, these are just 1. There's 2 here, right? There's 2 spaces between each, right? Typically you see even spaces, right? But because for whatever for readability sake, whoever made the CSV file, they said, hey, fill the space so all the columns look visually like a column, like Excel. Cool. Yes. Okay. All right. So And I'm going to show you how to strip, like we're in the next example, we're going to strip the, like a comma out of the CSV file, so we can use data. Sorry. Oops, sorry. Okay, so now we're going to do a dictionary. So we're going to take this data and make it into a dictionary. Okay. All right, so. Okay. Okay, so again, where did my import go? Okay, so here, what I want to do is create a, actually, hold on. I don't want to use this one. Just give me 1 second. I'm going to show you a different one. Okay. So again, we are using the data CS, we're using this file. Okay. It's index, mass, spring 1, spring 2. I guess they're weighing something in each season. You can notice that there is one space between each, it's a space, a comma, and then a space, comma, and space. Okay. So I want to make a dictionary. Okay, so what I'm doing here is, again, just like we were doing earlier, we said I call this fish, right? So I can call this fish just to. Okay. So I'm opening my CSV file and I'm putting an R here to mean that I'm reading it only. I'm not changing it. Okay. If I want to modify it, there are different letters to designate what you're doing in the file. So are you reading it only? Are you appending it? So right here, it says R is open for reading only. W is to open it and write to it. X will create a brand new file, and then you can modify it. A, you append to the end of the file, right? So if you want to add a column for, like, in this one, it's a weight in spring 1 and spring 2. If you want to add a column that does math and compares it, like does a subtraction, you can add a column to the CSV at the end of the file. So there's all these little different ways you can look at your CSV. So here I'm saying lines equals fish dot read lines. So read lines, what read lines does again is it goes through each line, row. Line means row, okay? Each row in the CSV, okay? A title is going to be, we're assuming that the first line of the CSV file has names. Okay, so I'm saying when you open my file fish and you get to the first row, which is 0, I want to strip out and split the CSV by the columns. Okay, and it's going to be in a list. Okay, so then, because you don't want to you want to separate your header in all instances, right? You don't want to manipulate your header and then add it to your data, right? So say you had a list of alphabetical names, the word name, which is the header, you're not going to use that for any purpose. Okay, does anyone have any questions about why I am taking out, I'm treating the header row separately? Okay, so then we're going to do a for loop. So I'm going to say for line in line. So all the rows, and I'm slicing beyond row 1. So again, I'm excluding row 0 and I'm slicing in and I'm saying for line in line. So again, I want to start at row 1 and iterate through it. And I'm going to do all of this to each line and then each object in the line. So I'm saying values equals line.strip.split. So I'm going to strip any white space. Okay. So it's telling you any leading and trailing white space is removed. And Eddie, this is your question, right? Do you want to strip it while you're using it, right? This is not going to change the data. It's just as I'm using it, I want to strip any white space. Okay. And the good thing to know about this is that if there's multiple words in, so say you have a list of names and it's first name dot last name, it's first name space last name. It's not going to eliminate the space between the names. It's only removing leading and trailing white space. Okay. And then I'm splitting all the data by a comma. Okay. Sandra, what did we use earlier? Did we use, which method did we use when we did your leak code?
We used a split.
We used split and then we used join, right?
And yes, and then join.
Cool. All right. So same thing where you do split and join. Peter, I'm not using join. I'm just using split here. Peter.
The leading white space on the left, or no, that's on the right. The trailing white space would be on the left of each character. That's being removed, the white space that's being removed.
Leading would mean in front and trailing would be on the back. So left and right. So leading would be left and trailing would be right.
Okay.
Yeah. Cool. Okay. So then I want to create a dictionary where the title is the key and the data is the value. Okay. So here I'm using data, right? What I want for each row, I want it to say, like, for instance, this first one, I want it to say, I have an index and my index is 1. So the key would be index and the value would be 1. The next part of the dictionary is I have mass in kilograms and it's 0.00, right? Then I want spring and I want it to do spring, just like you see in a dictionary, it's spring, colon, and then what your pair is. So your pair here would be 0.050. And then spring 2 would be the same number because it hasn't changed. Okay. So what I'm telling Python to do is I'm saving a data row. And remember, we're going through each row one by one. So I'm saving data row as the title based on what index I'm on. Okay. And the value for the same index. Okay. And this is line comprehension, and I didn't mean it to be to be this complicated, but this is the same as when you use line comprehension, it compresses your for loop into one row of information and executable code. So here you would actually read this backwards. So you would say for I in range length of titles. So I'm saying what is for iterate through each column, right? And I want to go through each column, right? And then I want to save titles at that index and pair it with the value at that index. Okay. Any questions about that? No. Okay. So then I'm going to add that row to my dictionary. Okay. So here's my dictionary. Right. And I'm going to add that row to my dictionary. And then I'm going to print it. So let's go here. So here you'll see. Hold on. Let me clear it and then. Okay, so I have a dictionary, right? And then I have nested inside the dictionary each row, and it's labeling each row, right? So this is row 1, and I have index is paired with 1. And here you have index is paired with 1. Then you have mass is paired with 0. Right? Mass is paired. It's in the second position. Your index 1. Then you have spring at 0.050 and spring 2 at 0.50. Okay. So then it goes to row 2 and it does the same thing. It creates a dictionary. So now I have nested dictionaries and I can use all this data just like you guys did the nest. Did you guys do nested dictionaries yet? Yes. In your library? No one's coming off mute. Okay. Questions on what we did here? Peter.
Has each row become a dictionary, a separate
Yes.
dictionary? Okay, yeah.
Yes.
That's what I thought.
And
Okay.
it's nested inside a separate dictionary. If I did this, data dictionary, you could do it as a list, right? And right now it's a dictionary nested, see right here in the terminal, it's a nested dictionary. It's dictionaries nested in a dictionary, right? To make your life easy, you can start with a list and do it that way. So if I clear the,
You need to change your batteries after
yeah,
class.
I know it's I have to change, like, it's not, Peter, I'll send you guys the code to do a dictionary, to do a list, a nested list, nested dictionaries inside of a list rather than nested dictionaries inside of a dictionary, but I'm gonna have to change this code to do that. It's not a problem, but I'll do that. I have to change this rule. So I'll put that in the resources channel. I'm gonna put this whole lesson in the resource channel because it's a more complicated set of the use of data is a little bit more complicated than just doing like for loops. Eddie.
Just a bit curious about how like commonly speaking, how deep do some of these nestings go? Like, is it common to come across more than like maybe 2 or 3 nesting levels?
Yeah, if you think about product data, like Amazon, you have dictionaries within dictionaries based on, okay, this is a granola bar, right? Then you have the brand of granola bar. Then you have like what, like it's you could have hundreds of nested dictionaries. It's not necessarily the best way to do it, but sometimes it's unavoidable, unavoidable. James.
Yeah, if you kind of think about it, yeah, when you were saying multiple nested, because it could even go as far as getting the user's input to how much the thing costs, where it's coming from, tracking where you're getting it from.
Right, you have inventory levels. So it's exactly, where is the data coming from? So your inventory level would come from your warehouse, right? Some data is coming from the pricing is coming from Amazon corporate. So you have all these dictionaries that are tied together, and those dictionaries are going to have CSVs. Like, it's a CSV, it's pulling data. It's not just a static CSV with in nested dictionaries. And Eddie, your question, you will have like data that is being pulled from multiple sources and then put together for your use. Okay, so any other questions before we go on break? I know this is a lot, and this is not something that you just learn and it sinks in. You just have to practice with it and play with it, and it gets easier. And when you guys are asking questions, it's like, I don't remember the syntax, is because as you don't use it for a little while, you forget it, and then you have to go look it up, and that's natural. That you will do. Google will be your best friend, or whoever, or Chat GPT, or whatever you use, Stack Overflow. So you'll constantly be using these resources, including python.org, right? Or the library's explanation. Okay, so I'm going to stop sharing. No smiling faces. Okay. Okay, so it's 7:47. Jessica, do you want to come back at 8?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. And then you guys are going to be going into your breakout rooms with your regular, like, it's either 4 or 5 people. And Jessica, what's the homework for today? Is it laptop?
It's the playlist.
Oh yeah, it's playlist.
Yeah, playlist.
Okay.
And
you shared the thing.
Yeah. Asha, go to room 7 with me.
Yeah.
Okay.
She's like this class.
Who understand this better than some of the simple stuff?
I can't help you there. I can't help you there, boss. That was, that was a rough one right there. It's great. It's great and informative, and that was a rough.
Yeah, but it's crazy. Like, I don't know why, but I've always been like this. It seems like the more complex something is, the better I learn it. Like when it's more challenging, I think I learn better.
Yeah,
it's weird.
Why am I getting this error? They don't tell me.
It forces me to look up, look up other, look up how to do it, practice.
Don't put my formula in there.
Seriously, this is, it's definitely something.
Well, ChatGPT also
But
doesn't tell you where
I really
cold
like
source
it because
being does.
it's
It,
doing
it'll give you an answer.
it has
and
like
more information here.
a lot of real world applications,
Swing back, swing back, swing back. Okay. Slime above me, slime beneath me, slime up above. That's also on my playlist. Toxic Love.
James, your camera and mic is still on.
Can't tell if that was someone running or shots.
What is going on? How come you can't see that? Oh.
Quiet. Oh, I met the other leasing agent. Super flamboyant young dude. Because I asked him if he was another maintenance guy. He's like, no, I'm a leasing agent. So, did you notice the front door? And he goes, yes, I did. The maintenance guy is going to get parts for it.
Oh, they must have been showing, that's when a couple of cats that have come back from the bathroom. Oh, I'm not gonna. Oh.
My camera come back on, and I'm off mute.
So do we go back to the breakout room now? Yeah, so.
I don't think they came back yet.
Please make us. Put some.
Yeah, I think we should just head to the breakout room and get started on that. Patrick and Kev, you want to meet me over there?
I'm gonna pause.